وأقول في القرآن ما جاءت به آياته فهو الكريم المنزال وأقول قال الله جل جلاله والمصطفى الهادي ولا أتأول.
How does a woman respond to a mother-in-law who is unfair in the treatment of her grandchildren and who overly burdens her son, causing him to neglect his wife and children, or a mother-in-law with high expectations? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala abdillahi wa rasulih nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. In this kind of situation, and there were multiple questions, I kind of brought them into one for the purpose of the video. We need to advise both the woman who is the wife and her husband. For the woman who is the wife, or even you could reverse it, the one who is the daughter-in-law or the son-in-law. This person, we need to tell them that you always respond in the way that is best. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ إِدْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. The good deed and the bad deeds are not equal. Respond in a way that is better. If you do this, then the one that there is enmity between you and them will become like your closest friend. And no one will achieve this except those who are patient, and no one will achieve this except those who have a great portion of good from Allah. وَإِمَّا يَنزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And if the shaitan comes to you and makes you slip, and you fall short of that standard, then seek refuge with Allah. Allah is the all-hearing and the all-knowing. So ultimately, this sets out, as we did a lecture on this during the course, the way that you respond to people who show you enmity, people who who oppress you. You ultimately respond in a way that is better. Always have the moral high ground, not because you'll win the argument with them, but because you'll be rewarded for it by Allah Azza wa Jalla Yawm al-Qiyamah. Make it about Allah, don't make it about the person. So let the woman be good to her mother-in-law who is bad to her for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of her mother-in-law. And likewise, the son-in-law whose mother-in-law oppresses him or what have you, let him be good to his mother-in-law because of or for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, knowing that if he does that, Allah will change that person's heart bi'idhnihi to make that heart come towards kindness and gentleness and softness. As for the spouse who is the son of that mother, and the one who is the husband who his wife is suffering from his mother, that man needs to find a balance. As we mentioned in the course, فَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ, the famous hadith, give everyone who has a right over you their right. There is no benefit in giving your mother her rights and then taking your wife's rights away. And there is even less benefit in giving the wife her rights and taking your mother's rights away, because that's an even greater sin in Islam. Rather, you have to balance between them. And most of the time, the problem here lies with the husband. Now, we're not saying that means the mother-in-law is amazing or a wonderful person. But usually, the fault lies with the husband, because he's not finding that balance. He's not giving his mother her rights independently and his wife her rights independently. Instead, what he's doing is he either doesn't know what those rights are, so he tramples over the rights of his wife or the rights of his mother, or he's being neglectful towards his mother, so she takes that out on his wife, or he's not preventing his mother from sin in a way that is respectful and kind, as we spoke about in other questions. He's not helping her to stop that kind of oppression, and he's not setting those kind of limits out. So he's giving his mother free rein to mistreat his wife without helping his mother in a respectful and kind way to stop doing that, or advising her, obviously in private, away from the wife and so on. But he's not doing that. So ultimately, so much of this, we're not going to say every case, but in many cases, so much of this comes down to the man, that he needs to man up and take responsibility, and he needs to treat his mother in the best way, but also to not allow that to take the rights away from his wife and his children. He needs to first of all know what the rights are for his wife and his children. Because so many times if he doesn't know what his mother's rights are, he doesn't know what his children's rights are, or they don't know that and he hasn't educated them about it, nobody knows. They just have cultural expectations. So the wife has an expectation and she feels hard done by. The mother has a cultural expectation and she feels hard done by. And nobody is ruling by what Islam actually says in the situation. So it is really important for أَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّ, give everyone who has a right over you their right. And it's also really, really important for a wife in this situation to think about how she treats her own daughter-in-law, because there is a perpetual cycle of evil that happens in these families, which is that the daughter-in-law is oppressed, then she becomes a mother-in-law and she oppresses her daughter-in-law. And the same cycle happens again. It's really important that what will bring us out of this jahiliyyah, this ignorant pre-Islamic behavior, is Islam. When the mother is guided by Islam, when the husband is guided by Islam, when the wife, i.e. the daughter-in-law, is guided by Islam, then this situation will not happen. This ignorance will be removed by the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. But when Islam is not the guide and Islam is not the judgment, what happens is, or the judgments are made without reference to Islam, then this will be a perpetual cycle of evil and dhulm and oppression that just keeps on happening again and again, generation after generation. It might also be beneficial to get others involved who might be able to give advice to the various people. It might be, for example, that the father-in-law, for example, has the ability to advise his wife, who is the mother-in-law, and to give her some advice about how to, maybe to take it a little bit easy on the daughter-in-law. But also the daughter-in-law has to seek, the moral high ground in that, to respond in the way that is best. And also all of that, the key here, the pivot is on the husband to really take that responsibility to give his mother her rights so that he can stand before Allah. She might not be happy. At the end of the day, some people have expectations that are just not Islamic. But at least he can say, I gave my mother her rights, Ya Allah. And I gave my wife her rights. And ultimately, if he does that, Allah Azza wa Jal will bring islah between them, will bring correction between them, and will correct that situation and stop it from going on to the next generation and the next generation. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. How can you do a 2-second action right now that will give you a share of the reward of everything we're doing on this YouTube channel? Simple. Like this video and click subscribe. Why? It will allow YouTube to recommend our videos to other users. And imagine the huge amount of reward that could be waiting for you on the Day of Judgment if you did that with a sincere intention of spreading the Deen of Allah. You'll be rewarded for every single person who benefits from one of our videos as a result of your like or subscribe. That's an easy 2-second action that you definitely don't want to miss out on. Do it now, click like and subscribe, and don't forget to make that intention.